Capricorn, let me ask you a question no one ever asks you. When was the last time you let someone love you without checking the time, the age, the cost, or the risk? Not the kind of love that fits your schedule, not the kind you keep under control so you don't fall apart again. I'm talking about the love that scares you because it doesn't ask you to be younger, lighter, or easier. There is someone who sees everything you carry, the years, the responsibility, the weight, and still chooses you. If your soul feels this already, type, "I allow love" in the comments, because what I'm about to share next may change how you see time, love, and yourself forever. Capricorn, stay right here with me. I want you to notice something, not outside of you, inside. That quiet ticking you carry, that invisible clock you never talk about, the one you check without realizing it. You've been measuring your life in years, in seasons that passed too fast, in doors that didn't open, in nights where you were the only one still standing, and no one taught you to do this. You learned it by surviving. You learned it the first time you had to grow up early, the first time responsibility showed up before love ever did, the first time you realized that if something was going to be built, you would be the one to carry it. So, you started counting how much time you've already given, how much energy you've already spent, how many times you rebuilt yourself without applause, without witnesses, without anyone offering to hold the weight with you. This isn't pessimism. This is realism forged through experience. You don't romanticize life anymore. You respect it. You respect how much it costs. And somewhere along the way, without making a dramatic decision, without saying it out loud, a belief quietly settled in that some things may no longer be meant for you, not because you failed, not because you're unworthy, but because maybe the window has closed, especially when it comes to love. You don't say this to anyone. You don't post it. You don't complain about it. You just adjust your expectations. You lower the volume on hope. You tell yourself you're fine, focusing on work, on stability, on keeping things functional. And on the surface, you are fine. But late at night, when the world goes quiet, there's a different truth that surfaces, a softer one, a tired one, the part of you that wonders what it would feel like to be chosen without urgency, to be loved without a countdown, to not feel like time is something you're constantly racing against or apologizing for. You've been strong for so long that strength started to feel like the only role you're allowed to play. And maybe that's why the idea of love feels complicated now. Not painful, not dramatic, just distant. Like something beautiful that belongs to another chapter, another version of you, another timeline. But here's the thing, and I want you to hear this slowly. That belief didn't come from truth. It came from exhaustion, from carrying too much alone, from being the reliable one, from being the one who stayed steady while everything else shifted. You didn't stop wanting love. You just stopped expecting it to meet you where you are now. And that's where the story begins to change, quietly, almost unnoticed. Because sometimes, the moment we decide something is no longer possible is the exact moment life prepares to show us how wrong that conclusion was. Not loudly, not dramatically, but gently. Through presence, through consistency, through someone who doesn't rush you or question your timing, someone who doesn't see your years as something to work around, but as something that gave you depth. And if a small part of you feels that shift already, that subtle pull you can't fully explain, just breathe into it. You don't need to decide anything yet. You don't need to open every door. Just stay with the feeling. Let it sit beside you. Because the clock you've been listening to may not be counting down at all. It may be waiting for you to notice that time was never the enemy. And as that realization begins to settle, something else quietly comes into view. Not about time, not about age, but about the kind of love you were taught to earn, and the kind you were never taught you could simply receive. Capricorn, let me stay close to you here. There is something about you that people misunderstand. They think your distance is coldness. They think your silence means you do not feel deeply. They think your restraint means your heart is closed. But that has never been true. You did not close your heart because you were afraid of love. You closed it because you understood love too well. You loved with responsibility long before you loved with fantasy. You stayed when it would have been easier to leave. You held things together when others were still deciding what they wanted. You made promises with your actions, not with words. And that kind of love changes a person. You learned early that love is not just emotion, it is duty. It is showing up when you are tired. It is choosing someone even when the feeling is heavy. It is carrying weight without complaining. So, when you loved, you did not fall. You committed. You invested time, energy, future plans. You adjusted your own path so someone else could feel safe. And when that devotion was not protected, when it was taken for granted, when the effort you gave was met with hesitation, avoidance, or silence, something inside you shifted, not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. You did not decide to stop loving. You decided to stop bleeding. You told yourself it was smarter to focus on work, to build something solid, to create a life that did not depend on anyone staying. You told yourself that structure would feel better than disappointment, that stability would hurt less than hope, that if you carried everything alone, at least nothing could be taken from you. And for a while, that worked. You became dependable, respected, strong. People leaned on you, trusted you, admired you, but very few asked how much it cost. Because the truth is, Capricorn, you did not become guarded because you are distant. You became guarded because you are capable of giving too much. You know how deeply you attach, how seriously you take promises, how fully you show up once you decide someone matters. And after being the one who stayed while others left, you learn to pause before opening the door again. Not out of bitterness, out of wisdom. There is a difference. You are not numb. You are careful. You are not unavailable. You are selective. You stopped rushing into connection because you understood that love without reciprocity becomes sacrifice. And sacrifice, when it is one-sided, eventually turns into exhaustion. So, you told yourself a story that helped you survive. That love was optional, that companionship was nice but not necessary, that you could build a meaningful life without needing to let anyone that close again. And you almost believed it. Almost, because there is a part of you that never stopped listening for something different, something quieter, something steady, not fireworks, not drama, presence. Someone who does not disappear when things get heavy. Someone who does not confuse your seriousness for emotional distance. Someone who understands that your love language is reliability, not constant reassurance. And maybe that is why lately something feels different. Not urgent, not overwhelming, just unfamiliar. A sense that you do not need to be earned to be kept, that you do not need to give more to be chosen, that you are not being asked to carry everything alone this time. And that realization can feel unsettling, because if you are not needed for your strength, if you are not valued for what you provide, then you are being seen for who you are. And that requires a different kind of courage. So just sit with that for a moment. No decisions, no conclusions, just awareness. Because when someone does not ask you to sacrifice yourself to be loved, it gently invites a question you have not asked in a long time. What if love was never meant to be something you endure? What if it was meant to be something that meets you where you stand? And as that thought begins to take shape, another quiet truth starts to emerge. Not about what you give, not about what you build, but about what happens when someone chooses to stay without needing you to hold everything up first. Capricorn, let me tell you something gently. There is a kind of moment that doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand your attention. It just appears, quietly, almost respectfully. Someone steps into your life and they don't begin with questions. They don't ask how old you are. They don't ask what chapter you're in. They don't ask how much time you think you have left to love, to build, to choose. And at first, that feels strange to you because you're used to being evaluated, measured, placed somewhere on a timeline. You're used to people wondering if you're too established, too serious, too late, or not quite aligned with their expectations. But this person doesn't look at you like that. They don't see years. They don't see mileage. They don't see expiration dates. They see steadiness. They see a calm strength that didn't come from luck. They see someone who knows how to stand when the ground shifts. They notice the way you listen, the way you don't waste words, the way your presence feels grounding, like being in a room where nothing needs to be proven. And while you are quietly wondering if you've missed your moment, they are quietly thinking something else, that it's rare to meet someone this real. You've spent so long believing that love favors the young, the unburdened, the unmarked, that by the time someone carries depth, responsibility, and lived experience, love has already moved on. So, when someone looks at you with curiosity instead of calculation, with appreciation instead of assessment, your instinct is to question it. You wonder what they haven't seen yet. You wonder when the questions will come. You wonder when the age thing will surface. But it doesn't. Because to them, your years are not a disadvantage. They are evidence. Evidence that you didn't collapse when things were heavy, that you didn't disappear when it would have been easier to walk away, that you learned how to build a life with intention, not impulse. They see that you are not shallow, that you are not rushed, that you don't chase excitement just to feel alive. You bring depth into a world that skims the surface. And that does something to them, because they too are tired of conversations that go nowhere, of connections that burn bright and vanish, of people who want the feeling of intimacy without the substance of it. So, they don't try to impress you, they don't try to speed things up, they don't pressure you to be different. They meet you where you are, and that can be disorienting, because you've spent years preparing yourself to be tolerated, to be accommodated, to be chosen with hesitation, not fully welcomed. So when someone doesn't flinch at your seriousness, doesn't get bored by your steadiness, doesn't feel threatened by your independence, it touches a place in you that you thought had gone quiet, a place that remembers what it feels like to be seen without being analyzed. And still, you hesitate, not because you don't feel it, but because you do. Because accepting this would mean letting go of the story that love has an ideal timeline, and you somehow stepped outside of it. It would mean admitting that maybe the years you thought disqualified you are the very reason someone recognizes your value. So you watch, you observe, you keep your balance, but inside, something softens. A realization begins to form, slowly, carefully. That love does not always arrive early. Sometimes it arrives prepared, not to rescue you, not to rush you, but to stand beside you and say, I see who you are now, and I choose that. And as that truth settles in your chest, without urgency, without pressure, another question gently takes shape. Not about age, not about timing, but about whether you're ready to let someone value you without asking you to rewind your life to deserve it. Capricorn, stay with me for a moment longer. There is a reason this feels unfamiliar to you, and it has nothing to do with doubt in your heart. It has everything to do with the way love has shown up for you in the past. You were taught that love always comes with a weight, that affection must be earned, that closeness requires effort, sacrifice, endurance. You learn that if someone loves you, they will need something from you, your strength, your stability, your ability to hold everything together when things fall apart. So, you adapted, you became reliable, you became the one who carries, the one who plans ahead, the one who thinks about consequences while others follow feelings. And because of that, love always felt conditional. If you loved someone, you took responsibility for their comfort. If you cared, you worried. If you stayed, you paid a price. Not because anyone asked you to, but because that is how you love. So now, when someone enters your life and does not place a burden on your shoulders, your nervous system does not know what to do with it. They are not rushing you. They are not asking you to prove anything. They are not questioning your readiness or your worth. They are simply there. And that confuses you more than rejection ever did. Because effort makes sense to you. Pressure feels familiar. Expectation is something you know how to navigate. But ease that feels suspicious. You start looking for the hidden cost. You wait for the moment when they will finally ask something of you. You wonder what you are missing. Because in your experience, love without demands was never an option. So your mind starts questioning what your heart quietly recognizes. You think maybe they do not know you well enough yet. Maybe they have not seen how serious you are, how slow you move, how carefully you choose. Maybe when they do, they will change their mind. And that thought keeps you at a distance. Not because you want to push them away, but because you are trying to protect both of you from disappointment. You are used to love that requires endurance. You are not used to love that offers presence. And presence is unsettling when you have spent years believing you are valued most for what you provide. This person is not asking you to carry them. They are not leaning on your discipline or your structure. They are not impressed by your resilience in the way others were. They see it, but they do not need it. They are interested in you even when you are quiet, even when you are tired, even when you are not performing strength. And that touches a very vulnerable place. Because if they do not need you to overextend, then what happens to the role you have played for so long? Who are you when love does not require sacrifice? You might find yourself pulling back slightly, not because you feel nothing, but because you feel too much. Because this kind of connection does not fit the model you learned. It does not match the patterns that kept you safe. You were prepared to be appreciated. You were prepared to be respected. You were even prepared to be relied on. But being chosen without conditions, that is new territory. So you hesitate. You observe. You keep your guard just high enough to feel in control. and still something keeps drawing you in. The consistency, the calm, the absence of pressure. It feels different from the love you survived. It feels like the love you never thought would come without a cost. And that is where the doubt lives, not in your heart, but in the contrast. You are trying to understand how something so gentle can be real, how something that does not ask you to suffer can still be meaningful. And maybe the question is not what they want from you. Maybe the real question is, what if love was never meant to feel heavy in the first place? What if what you endured before was not proof of depth, but proof of imbalance? Just sit with that. You do not need to answer it. You do not need to decide anything yet. Because as this connection continues to remain steady, without demanding, without withdrawing, without keeping score, another realization quietly moves closer. One that asks you to consider whether love can exist without asking you to prove your worth first. Capricorn, take a breath with me here. What you are feeling now is not fireworks. It is not urgency. It is not the rush that makes the heart race and the mind spin. And that is exactly why it feels unfamiliar. This is not a love that arrives loudly. It does not knock the door down. It does not demand your attention or try to overwhelm you. It simply stays. It shows up in the quiet spaces, in the pauses between messages, in the moments when you retreat inward and expect the distance to be misunderstood. But it is not. You go silent for a while, not to punish, not to test, just because that is how you process. And they do not disappear. They do not assume the worst. They do not fill the silence with accusations or fear. They allow the space to exist without turning it into a threat. That alone speaks volumes. Because you have known love that vanished the moment you stopped performing. Love that required constant reassurance. Love that mistook your need for solitude as rejection. This one does not. When you are tired, when the weight of responsibility presses down, when your energy runs low, they do not judge you for it. They do not try to fix you. They do not tell you to lighten up or be different. They understand that your strength comes from endurance, that your silence is not emptiness, that your way of loving is built through actions, not declarations. They notice the small things, the way you show care by being reliable, the way you protect without making a show of it, the way you stay grounded when everything else feels unstable. They do not exploit your vulnerability when it surfaces. They do not take advantage of the moments when your guard drops. Instead, they become steadier. And that is something your nervous system recognizes even if your mind is still catching up. Because this kind of love does not feel like a high. It feels like a foundation. You are not swept away. You are not distracted from yourself. You are not losing control. You are more present. This is not the love of youth that burns fast and demands proof. This is not the love that confuses intensity with intimacy. This is the love of someone who has lived long enough to know that consistency is rare, that patience is valuable, that trust is built quietly. They respect your pace. They do not rush you into vulnerability. They allow you to reveal yourself in layers, as you always have. And in doing so, they show you something important, that you do not need to be dramatic to be desired. You do not need to be expressive to be understood. You do not need to explain your depth to someone who recognizes it naturally. This love does not pull you out of yourself. It settles beside you. It does not feel like being consumed. It feels like being accompanied. And that is why it feels safe in a way you are not used to. Because you have been conditioned to believe that love must be intense to be real, that it must hurt a little to matter. That ease means boredom. But this ease is not emptiness. It is stability. It is two people who are not trying to escape themselves through each other. Two people who know what it means to carry weight and choose not to add more. This love does not ask you to become someone else. It does not require you to revisit who you were or pretend you are lighter than you are. It meets you here, in the life you have built, in the person you are now. And as you sit with that, as you notice how calm this connection feels, how it does not drain you, how it does not demand constant effort, a quiet question begins to form. What if love was never meant to feel like a fire you survive? What if it was meant to feel like ground that holds you? And as that thought settles, without pressure, without expectation, something else gently comes into focus. Not about excitement, not about passion, but about what it means to finally feel steady with someone who is not trying to take anything from you. Capricorn, listen to this part slowly, because this is where something important shifts, not outside of you, inside. No one ever told you that you were too old to love, No one stood in front of you and said your time had passed. No one closed that door for you. You did. Quietly, reasonably, with logic that made sense at the time. You looked at your life, at what you had already built, at how much effort it took to get here. And you made a decision that felt protective. You told yourself that love has a window, that it belongs to a certain season, and that once you move beyond it, you should be grateful for what you have and stop wanting more. It sounded mature, responsible, very Capricorn. But the truth is, that belief did not come from clarity. It came from fatigue, from years of being the one who holds things together, from carrying responsibilities that were never evenly shared, from choosing stability when chaos was the alternative. You did not stop believing in love. You stopped leaving the door open for it. You told yourself that you were being realistic, that you were protecting your peace, that you were simply done with unnecessary risk. And in many ways, that helped you survive. You built a life that works. You created structure. You secured your footing. You became very good at building walls that look like achievements, very good at turning self-protection into success. Career, reputation, independence, all solid, all earned. But walls do not know the difference between danger and connection. They keep everything out. And at some point, without you even realizing it, you stopped asking yourself whether anyone was allowed in at all. That is the real deadline. Not age, not years, not numbers. The moment you decided that no one would get close enough to disturb what you have built. You convinced yourself that this was strength, that needing less meant being stronger, that closing off meant being wise. But strength that never opens eventually becomes isolation. And isolation does not announce itself. It arrives quietly, disguised as peace, disguised as control. Until one day someone shows up who does not challenge your stability, but gently questions your closure. They do not try to break your walls. They do not demand access. They simply stand there, patient, consistent, and something inside you notices. Not because they are pushing, but because they are not. They do not rush you. They do not pressure you to explain. They do not ask you to tear anything down. They just remain present. And suddenly, the story you told yourself about deadlines starts to feel less certain. Because if time were truly the issue, why does this feel so relevant now? If love were really behind you, why does this connection feel so alive? You begin to realize something uncomfortable, that the door was not closed because it had to be. It was closed because you were tired of giving more than you received, tired of being strong for everyone, tired of hoping without evidence. So you chose certainty over possibility, but what you are learning now is that certainty without connection eventually feels hollow. Safety without warmth turns cold. And maybe the question is not whether you waited too long. Maybe the question is whether you finally built enough to feel safe opening up again. Because the life you have created was never meant to be a fortress. It was meant to be a place where something real could land. You did not build all of this just to stand alone on top of it. And as you let that idea settle, without judgment, without pressure, you may notice something soften, a realization that the walls you built were meant to protect you for a time, not forever. And when you begin to see that, another awareness quietly steps forward, not about what you might lose by letting someone in, but about what has been waiting on the other side of the door you thought had already closed. Capricorn, I want you to slow down here, because this fear you are feeling is not weakness, it is recognition. You are not afraid because you might lose control. You are afraid because you already feel how much this matters. There is a difference. Most of your life, fear came from instability, from not knowing what would happen next, from being forced to adapt before you were ready. This fear is quieter, deeper. It does not shout, it waits. It shows up in the moments when you realize this person is not just passing through your life. They are not here to distract you, not here to fill time, not here to take advantage of what you have built. They are here in a way that could actually change the shape of your days. And that is what unsettles you, because change for you has never been abstract. Change has always cost something. You rebuilt yourself too many times to romanticize transformation. You know exactly what it takes: the sleepless nights, the self-doubt, the long stretches where you had to rely on discipline because motivation was nowhere to be found. You did that alone. So when someone comes close enough to touch the part of you that remembers how heavy that was, your body reacts before your mind does. You pull back slightly. You steady yourself. You remind yourself of who you are supposed to be, the one who carries, the one who does not lean too hard, the one who handles things. And this connection challenges that identity, not aggressively, not dramatically, gently, because this person does not admire you only for your strength. They see it, they respect it, but they are not dependent on it, and that creates an unfamiliar tension. If you are not needed to hold everything together, then what happens when you admit that you are tired? If you are not valued only for what you provide, then what happens when you stop providing for a moment? If someone can stay close without you proving your worth, then you are being seen without armor, and that is terrifying in a way you do not talk about. Because you have lived so long as the responsible one that you forgot what it feels like to be allowed to need, not in a dramatic way, not in a way that makes you feel exposed, but in a quiet, human way. You might notice yourself thinking, I should be able to handle this on my own. I should not want this. I should not need anyone at this stage. Those thoughts are familiar. They kept you moving when you had no support, but they were never meant to be permanent. This person brings up something you thought you had resolved. The truth that independence was a solution, not a destiny. That strength was a phase of survival, not the final version of you. And admitting that does not take anything away from what you have accomplished. It honors it. Because needing someone now does not erase the years you stood alone. It gives those years meaning. Still, your fear makes sense. If you allow this to matter, you risk being changed again. Not because they will hurt you, but because they could soften you. And softness for you has always felt like a liability. You learn to keep your emotions contained, to stay composed, to stay useful. Letting someone reach you here means letting go of a role that kept you safe for a long time. So, you hesitate. You ask yourself practical questions. You check your footing. You stay alert. But beneath all of that is a quieter awareness that this person is not asking you to give up control. They are asking you to share it, not to collapse into them, not to hand over your life, just to stop carrying everything alone. And maybe that is the most frightening part, because it means acknowledging that the life you built was not meant to be endured in solitude. It was meant to be lived. You do not have to decide anything tonight. You do not have to rush your heart or your logic. Just notice this. The fear you feel is not a warning to run. It is a signal that something real is standing close enough to matter. And as you sit with that realization, without forcing clarity, without demanding answers, you may begin to sense something else. A quiet shift, from protecting yourself from change to wondering what kind of life becomes possible when you no longer have to carry it all alone. Capricorn, let this part land softly. Nothing here is forcing you. Nothing is rushing you toward a decision. No one is standing over your shoulder telling you what you must do with your heart. That has never been how real things enter your life. This is simply an invitation, quiet, respectful, offered at your pace. You are not being asked to fall in love. You are not being asked to promise anything. You are not being asked to rewrite your life overnight. You are being invited to stop running from a feeling you already recognize. Because for a long time, you have been living from a place of strength. And that strength carried you far. It helped you survive seasons that would have broken others. It helped you build stability when chaos would have been easier. It helped you become someone others could depend on. But strength was never meant to replace connection. And being capable was never meant to mean being alone. You told yourself that safety was enough, that independence was enough, that being in control was the same as being at peace. And in many ways, it was. Until something inside you started to feel quiet in a different way. Not calm, not content, just untouched. You noticed it in moments when the day slowed down, in evenings when there was nothing left to accomplish, in spaces where no one needed anything from you. That gentle awareness that you built a strong life, but you did not build it to live without warmth. So when someone appears and does not threaten your stability, does not ask you to sacrifice yourself, does not require you to shrink or perform, you feel torn. Part of you wants to stay where it is safe, where nothing unexpected can enter, where you know how things work. Another part of you, the quieter part, wants to lean forward, not dramatically, not recklessly, just enough to see what happens if you stop bracing for impact. Because the truth is, love does not expire. It does not obey timelines. It does not consult calendars or measure years the way people do. Love responds to readiness. And readiness is not about age. It is about honesty, about whether you are willing to admit that you still feel, that you still want, that you still care. You are not being asked to give up your independence. You are being invited to soften your grip on solitude. You are not being asked to stop being strong. You are being reminded that strength and openness can exist together. You can remain grounded and still let someone stand beside you. You can keep your life intact and allow space for another presence within it. Nothing about this takes away from what you have built. It adds to it. And the most important part is this: you are allowed to choose. You can choose to stay exactly where you are, protected, self-sufficient, untouched. There is nothing wrong with that. Or you can choose to take a small step, not into certainty, not into promises, just into trust. Trust that not every door opens to take something from you. Trust that not every connection comes to undo your progress. Trust that some people arrive not to disrupt your life, but to share it. Someone is already showing you that love does not have a deadline, not by words, by presence, by staying, by not asking you to rush, by not asking you to be less than who you are. And the question is not whether love is possible for you. It always was. The only question that matters now is whether you are willing to stop hiding from it, not all at once, not perfectly. Just enough to see what grows when you finally allow yourself to believe that something good did not arrive too late. It arrived when you were finally ready to recognize it. Capricorn, before you go, stay with me for just a moment longer. I want you to notice how you feel right now, not what you think, not what you plan to do next, just what is quietly present in your chest, that warmth, that calm, that sense of recognition. That is not coincidence, that is resonance. You did not find this message by accident, and it did not come to pressure you or push you into something you are not ready for. It came to remind you of something you forgot, that your heart did not expire, that your capacity to love did not close with time, that everything you have lived through did not harden you, it refined you. You are not behind, you are not late, you are right on time for the kind of love that knows how to stay. And maybe the most surprising truth of all is that nothing needs to change overnight. Not your life, not your structure, not your identity. The only thing asked of you is honesty with yourself. If something in you feels seen, if something in you feels quietly hopeful, write one simple sentence in the comments. I choose to trust myself. Not because you have all the answers, but because you finally trust your own timing. If this message spoke to you, subscribe to this channel, not just to support it, but to stay connected. This space was created for Capricorn souls who are strong, thoughtful, and quietly deep. People who do not rush life, but still want it to mean something. More messages are coming, not louder, not faster, deeper, clearer, more aligned with who you are becoming. The journey does not end here, it unfolds, and the next message will meet you exactly where you need it. Until then, trust yourself. Trust what you felt tonight. You are not alone in this.